Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're stepping into a really fascinating, though, yeah, pretty complex situation. It's all unfolding behind the scenes of the film adaptation of It Ends With Us.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually got our hands on a revealing collection of legal documents. We're talking Blake Lively's formal complaint, Wayfarer party's response to that, those, always interesting court case notes,
Right.
and an exhibit that lays out exactly what kind of digital breadcrumbs both sides are, well, looking to preserve.
Yeah, it's quite the collection.
So our mission today really is to pull out the core disagreements, try to map out the timeline of key events as they're being presented in these legal filings, and just really understand the crux of this, well, multi-layered story.
Precisely. Think of it like we're dissecting a film reel, but, in reverse, trying to get a handle on the tensions and conflicts that came up during its creation and afterwards, all through the lens of these legal arguments.
Yeah.
And it's really important to remember we're sticking strictly to what's laid out right here in these documents. We're aiming for clarity on the narratives being presented without taking sides.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this from the beginning.
Yeah.
How did this film even come about? Wayfarer parties, which Justin Baldoni co-founded, back in 2019?
Not 2019.
They had this stated goal, apparently, to be a different kind of studio. And it really sounds like Baldoni's connection to Colleen Hoover's novel was a huge driving force early on.
Indeed. The initial communications between Baldoni and Colleen Hoover, at least as they're presented in these documents, they really highlight a strong personal connection he felt to the material, particularly its themes around survivors of domestic violence. He seemed to express a clear intent, to create something meaningful.
Right.
And what's interesting is Hoover's initial confidence in him. Apparently, after seeing his work on 5 Feet Apart, she not only entrusted him with the rights, but even suggested he direct and play Ryle.
Wow. Okay. That speaks to a lot of early trust.
A significant level, yeah. The shared vision, it seemed, at the start.
Right. There's this initial spark, creative alignment. Hoover's emails, they apparently show her deep hope that the film would truly connect with her readers, capture the book's core themes authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And especially her desire to avoid it being seen as just like a hot romance.
Yeah, she was quite specific about that.
And Baldoni's responses seem to echo this, emphasizing the story's power in tackling difficult subjects with, nuance.
Mm.
It really makes you wonder about the internal dynamics that might have shifted later on.
That is a key point, isn't it? Because this foundation of, initial enthusiasm and apparent agreement on the film's direction makes the allegations that come later all the more significant. Mm-hmm. The documents also note Wayfarer's partnership with Sony. They came in for co-financing and distribution.
Right, a crucial step.
Yeah, it underscores the scale, the ambition of this project right from the start.
But then the narrative, it takes a really noticeable shift when we dig into Blake Lively's complaint. That lays out some serious allegations of on-set misconduct.
Okay.
Filming started, May 2023?
Mm-hmm.
But then it got paused because of the WGA strike.
Right. The strike suspended a lot of productions.
Yeah. So Lively's complaint details what she describes as invasive, unwelcome, unprofessional, and sexually inappropriate behavior, allegedly by Baldoni and also Jamie Heath, who both had key leadership roles on set.
Okay, so this brings the focus immediately to, the power dynamics you often find on a film set. Lively's allegations include specific instances, like claims that Baldoni took unscripted and non-consensual actions during intimate scenes.
Unconsensual, like kisses.
That's what's alleged, yes, kisses. Despite apparently prior agreements on exactly how things would be blocked out, the choreography and consent protocols.
Okay.
She also alleges really concerning invasions of privacy in her makeup trailer by Baldoni and Heath while she was undressed, including, the complaint says, while she was breastfeeding.
Wow. Those are clearly very serious allegations.
Extremely.
Lively's complaint goes further, too. It recounts an instance where Baldoni allegedly shared details of his past sexual encounters and had discussions around consent right there in her presence.
Mm-hmm.
And separately, an interaction where Heath allegedly stared at Lively's chest in a way that made her and her team feel deeply uncomfortable.
Right.
She even states that her discomfort being alone with Baldoni got to the point where another crew member would stay present during their interactions. What really stands out to you about these initial claims?
Well, what's striking is the alleged pattern of behavior that Lively describes. It seems to paint a picture of a consistent sense of boundaries being overstepped, maybe a lack of respect for her personal space and privacy, and critically, by individuals who were in positions of authority on the production.
Yeah, the authority aspect is key. Okay, turning to the film's marketing. Lively's complaint outlines an initial plan and then, well, alleges an abrupt and significant change.
Okay, what was the initial plan?
The original strategy, which Wayfarer and Heath reportedly supported, was aimed at emphasizing the main character's strength, her resilience, framing it as a story of hope and actually downplaying the domestic violence elements.
Interesting. So kind of a deliberate choice in how to position the film publicly.
Exactly. But Lively alleges that closer to the release date, Baldoni shifted away from that approach entirely.
Shifted how?
She claims he started using narratives around domestic violence, specifically to explain why cast and crew were apparently distancing themselves from him online and not appearing with him publicly.
So using the film's themes to potentially counter negative personal PR. That's the allegation.
That's what Lively's complaint alleges, yes. A real disconnect between the initial plan message and how Baldoni allegedly chose to address these emerging public perceptions around the production itself.
Right.
Her complaint also details her attempts, to address her concerns about the on-set environment earlier on. She and others reportedly tried to resolve these issues informally while filming was still happening, but apparently without success. It paints a picture of a potential breakdown in, the internal mechanisms for handling workplace issues.
Exactly. A failure to address concerns, potentially. So Lively's complaint then states that her worries about going back to production led her to get lawyers involved.
Right.
To negotiate specific workplace protections. This resulted in something called a contract writer.
A writer. So extra terms added to her contract.
Basically, yeah. A specific set of additional terms tacked onto her existing actor loan-out agreement, designed specifically to address her concerns about safety on set.
And this process, according to her complaint, took 8 months to finalize.
8 months, yeah. And Lively frames this as a private effort, trying to address the alleged misconduct and harassment internally, particularly because, she claims, Wayfarer had failed to investigate her earlier concerns.
Okay. And she also claims that Wayfarer explicitly agreed not to retaliate against her in any way, including, in the press.
Yes, that alleged agreement not to retaliate becomes a really key point when we look at the subsequent claims flying back and forth.
Precisely. Because both Lively and Wayfarer make allegations of retaliation and, a smear campaign. But naturally, from totally opposing viewpoints.
Of course.
Lively claims that after she raised concerns about the on-set behavior, Baldoni and Wayfarer launched this retaliatory press and digital strategy, aiming to intimidate her and others.
Okay, so that's her side. What's Wayfarer's counter?
Well, conversely, Wayfarer's complaint alleges that Lively herself leaked confidential information. Specifically, a complaint filed with the California Civil Rights Department leaked it to the New York Times.
Okay.
And provided false information before filing her lawsuit. Wayfarer argues this was basically an act of revenge, designed to damage them significantly before they even had a chance to go through discovery.
So they're saying she preemptively attacked them in the press.
Exactly. They even go so far as to suggest that Lively never actually intended to file a lawsuit initially, implying she wanted to avoid the whole legal discovery process.
So we have these two completely different stories about who started and fueled a negative campaign.
A classic case of competing narratives, right? Lively's complaint, though, provides a lot of detail regarding the alleged engagement of a crisis PR specialist, Melissa Nathan, and her company, TAG.
Right, the PR angle.
Yes, according to Lively's complaint, Nathan's proposed strategy included creating a dedicated website, doing comprehensive social media management, and using what were actually described as untraceable tactics.
Untraceable?
Yeah, aimed at shifting the public narrative. Jennifer Abel, who's Baldoni's publicist, allegedly referred to this whole thing as social media mitigation and manipulation.
Wow.
Lively's complaint even includes this really disturbing allegation that Baldoni provided a screenshot of another female celebrity, one who'd been accused of bullying, as a kind of model for their campaign against Lively.
Seriously?
With explicit instructions, allegedly. Focus on Reddit, TikTok, IG. That level of alleged detail in a legal complaint is, it's quite striking.
It really is. And what's particularly notable is the alleged intention behind these tactics, as Lively's complaint describes it. There's a claim that TAG assured Abel they could effectively bury Lively.
Bury her?
Yeah. It paints a picture, at least from Lively's perspective, of a potentially really aggressive, well-financed plan to retaliate against her just for speaking out.
Now, Wayfarer's complaint does acknowledge they faced a PR crisis when all this tension became public.
Okay, so they admit there was a crisis.
Yes, and they confirmed they did hire Melissa Nathan to help them navigate it. But of course, their account of the motivations and the execution of any PR strategy is vastly different from Lively's allegations.
Naturally.
Lively's complaint also includes a text message, allegedly from a TAG employee, noting a shift on social media sentiment, specifically towards focusing negatively on Lively and her husband.
Okay, so evidence, potentially, of the campaign's effect.
Potentially.
No.
Furthermore, Abel allegedly told Nathan she was pleased that the initial press coverage hadn't included accusations of Baldoni being unsafe, making fat comments, or being sexual.
Interesting communication.
And Nathan allegedly texted Abel back that the worst is over and that Baldoni wouldn't face being canceled. These alleged communications, if true, offer a glimpse into the strategies and desired outcomes being discussed, again, according to Lively's complaint.
Yeah, these alleged texts provide a fascinating, if maybe concerning, look into the kind of rapid-fire world of crisis management in the digital age, right?
Totally.
Lively further claims that a member of the TAG team reported this shift in narrative, focusing negatively on her and her husband. And she includes another text, one she allegedly sent to a fellow cast member, about Baldoni supposedly hiring bots.
Bots, like fake accounts.
Yeah, hiring bots to attack her character online right while she was out there promoting the film.
That's quite something. The allegations take another turn, too, with Lively claiming that Steve Sarowitz, who's a financier associated with the film, allegedly threatened to go after her and her husband if they ever crossed the line, vowing to protect the studio, with a really disturbing and graphic analogy, according to the complaint.
Wow. Okay, so direct threats alleged there.
Yeah. On the flip side, Wayfarer's complaint points to the actress Isabella Ferrer Sloan.
Okay, what about her?
They highlight Sloan's agreement with the PR consultant, Nathan, and then her subsequent alleged breach of that agreement by speaking to the Daily Mail and denying any on-set problems occurred.
So Wayfarer is saying Sloan broke ranks and contradicted the agreed narrative.
That seems to be their point. It just adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it? With these conflicting accounts of what different people involved were saying publicly.
It really underscores the challenge of managing narratives when you've got multiple individuals, all with their own perspectives and potentially agendas.
Lively also alleges the defendants created a specific website, thelawsuitinfo.com.
Okay.
For the sole purpose, she claims, of posting materials that presented their side of the story in a, well, self-serving light.
Right, controlling the narrative directly.
And she also claims the defendants threatened third parties, trying to prevent them from speaking negatively about Baldoni.
So alleged attempts to silence others too.
Yeah. This alleged effort to control the public narrative then connects directly to Lively, highlighting Baldoni's, very well-established public persona.
Right, the man enough guy.
Exactly. And the accusations of hypocrisy leveled against him in her complaint. She draws direct attention to his widely seen 2017 TED Talk, Why I'm Done Trying to Be Man Enough.
I remember that.
And his Man Enough talk show, both of which are aimed at promoting healthier ideas about masculinity, fostering open discussions around really critical issues like the #MeToo movement and consent.
And it's significant that Lively's complaint actually includes excerpts from that TED Talk and his show.
Yeah. What kind of excerpts?
Where he explicitly emphasizes how important it is to actively listen to women, to acknowledge unintentional harm, take accountability for your actions, and challenge sexist behaviors. So Lively's central argument here is pretty clear. Baldoni's alleged on-set conduct, and then the alleged retaliation campaign that followed, stand in stark contradiction to this carefully built public image he has as a feminist ally.
Right. It raises big questions, doesn't it, about the authenticity of public personas, the potential gap between image and reality.
Definitely.
And to try and visually illustrate the alleged impact of this campaign, Lively's complaint includes a graph.
A graph of what?
Tracking the net volume of positive versus negative mentions of her online from June to December 2024.
Okay. And what does it show?
Reportedly, it shows a significant negative trend starting around August 2024. With really notable spikes in negative sentiment around August 8th and 14th, dates that Lively claims line up directly with the active phase of this alleged retaliation campaign.
So a visual representation trying to offer a tangible measure maybe of the shift in public perception she experienced, obviously presented from her side, but still.
Right. A data point, as presented in her complaint.
Yeah.
She further claims her Instagram account was just flooded with pornographic content.
Oh, that's awful.
A form of online harassment that Meta, Facebook, Instagram's parent company, publicly acknowledged and said they took action to remove.
Wow. That's a deeply disturbing detail, isn't it? It really highlights the potential for just severe online abuse in situations like this.
Absolutely. Lively describes experiencing significant harm, mental, physical, professional, financial, directly because of these events. She reportedly had to cancel public appearances. And tragically, she also details the alleged impact on her husband and her young children, who she claims faced trauma and threats.
Oh, the children, too.
Yeah. And notes that other individuals associated with her were also subjected to online bullying.
Yeah.
These are presented as direct consequences of the alleged retaliation.
Yeah, those are incredibly serious and far-reaching consequences that Lively is attributing directly to the actions of the defendants named in her suit.
Right. Which brings us to the formal legal actions that have now been kicked off. Wayfarer Parties has filed a lawsuit against Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Isabella Ferrer-Sloan, and Vision Entertainment.
Okay, what are they alleging?
Civil extortion, among other claims.
Civil extortion. Okay.
And in response, Lively has filed her own very comprehensive complaint against Wayfarer, Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, Melissa Nathan, Tag Consulting, Jennifer Abel, Steve Sarowitz, Jed Wallace, and Street Relations.
So a wide range of defendants there.
A very wide range, alleging everything from sexual harassment, retaliation, failure to investigate, defamation, you name it. And notably, her complaint just dismisses Wayfarer's belated launch of an internal investigation in 2025, calls it nothing more than a sham.
Right. The timing of internal investigations often becomes a huge point of contention in these kinds of legal fights, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The fact that Wayfarer's investigation reportedly only began after legal action was already underway, that's clearly a key point Lively's team is highlighting.
Yeah. The documents also touch on some procedural stuff, like disputes over formally serving legal papers to Jed Wallace, one of the PR consultants.
Okay, standard legal wrangling.
Yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, Wayfarer has also reportedly filed a separate lawsuit against the New York Times over their reporting of Lively's allegations.
Right, so it's really a multi-front legal battle unfolding.
It really is. Finally, we have Exhibit A, which is basically a formal demand for the preservation of a very broad range of documents and electronically stored information, ESI, related to this whole case.
Standard procedure, but important. What kind of info?
Everything. Emails, text messages, contracts, social media activity, DMs, any content that could be seen as disparaging the works. This kind of document preservation request is, standard, but it's a crucial first step in any major litigation like this.
It certainly signals the absolutely extensive discovery process that is likely to unfold now, right? With both sides looking to uncover a vast amount of information they hope will support their claims.
For sure. So, okay, to try and bring it all together, we've navigated a situation that's just marked by these deeply, deeply conflicting accounts. On one side, you have these serious allegations of on-set misconduct, invasions of privacy, and then this subsequent allegedly orchestrated retaliatory smear campaign.
Right. And on the other side, you have claims of a false, malicious narrative being deliberately spread as an act of revenge, maybe for financial gain.
Exactly. The fundamental issues, the heart of this dispute, are these just irreconcilable differences in what people say transpired on set, and then the motivations and actions taken by everyone involved after Lively initially raised her concerns.
Precisely. And as a listener, you're kind of left to consider the wider implications of events like these, particularly within the context of celebrity culture, power dynamics in the workplace, especially in an industry like Hollywood, and the really potent influence of social media on public perception and even on legal proceedings.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. In a world where online personas are often so meticulously crafted, so carefully maintained, what are the consequences when private actions are alleged to clash so dramatically with those public narratives? How do these kinds of legal battles really play out in this hyper-connected age of social media, the instantaneous spread of information? And maybe what responsibility do media outlets have when they're reporting on such sensitive, potentially one-sided information while these legal processes are still very much underway?
Yeah, it's a lot to process, a lot of important questions raised by this whole situation.
It really is. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.